Well, good morning, y'all. I'm Hannah Hill. I'm the Executive Director for the National Foundation for Gun Rights, and we are here in New Haven, Connecticut this morning. This is the Federal District Courthouse behind me, and in just a few minutes, we're going to be walking into our first hearing, our first day in court, in our lawsuit against Connecticut's assault weapons ban and standard capacity magazine ban. So this law was passed back in 2013 following the 2012 tragic Newtown massacre. But instead of going after the root cause, Connecticut's politicians instead doubled down and turned on law-abiding gun owners and blamed them for the actions of a psychopath. And in response to that shooting, they passed two of the worst laws that we have seen in our country, New York's and Connecticut's bans on semi-automatic firearms and standard capacity magazines. We told our members at the time that we would be back to overturn that law, Connecticut's law, in court, and that's what we're here today to do. So we have filed to have this struck down because it's in direct violation of the Second Amendment, as well as multiple Supreme Court precedents, Heller, McDonald, and Bruin. So we will be arguing that today in court. Now specifically, we're asking the court to give us a preliminary injunction, which will suspend the enforcement of that law throughout the duration of the lawsuit. So Connecticut's been throwing all sorts of bogus arguments against us. They've been arguing that assault weapons bans are not commonly owned. They've been arguing that assault weapons, so-called, are not commonly owned, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's America's most popular firearm. They're arguing that standard capacity magazines are not protected under the Constitution, which is also ridiculous. And they're arguing that gun bans like this one are actually consistent with the text, history, and tradition of the Second Amendment. None of which is true, none of which they can prove. But we have a lot of anti-gun national organizations, lawyers, stacked up in this case against us. And they're essentially trying to swamp the courts with all kinds of emotion, bogus arguments, legal gymnastics, anything they can to distract the court from the fact that this is really a very simple case. The Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Heller says that you cannot ban commonly owned weapons like AR-15s for self-defense. And Bruin says that if a government, a local or a state government, wants to infringe on a Second Amendment right, they have to prove that their ban is consistent with the text, history, and tradition of the Second Amendment. All of these mean that for us, it's a slam dunk. It's an open shut case. And we will be arguing today in court that that is the case and that they should suspend this law enforcement without any further ado. So stay tuned for updates, and we'll be back here in a bit with our attorney to let you know how it went.